That's where we start our conversation with Marc Short. Don't worry, we will get to foreign policy with the former chief of staff to former Vice President Mike Pence, former White House Director of Legislative Affairs. Marc, it's great to see you. Happy Friday, and thanks for joining us. Why would Mark Wayne Mullen want to do this? This is a seat he could have held for, the balance of his career. Why jump on DHS at a moment of chaos if only you don't say no to the boss?
Well, perhaps the Senate isn't as much fun as some people think it is, and people want it out. Bored? But yeah, I think it could be. But I think it's a really good question, Joe, because the reality is that I think the policies that are really guiding the Department of Homeland Security are going to be driven by the White House, and particularly by Stephen. And so, So to what extent are you having operational control as secretary? I think you've seen over there were 4 secretaries in the first administration and now 1 in the second administration. This is really, it's not like he's going to have a chance to really direct this himself. So I think it's a fair question to ask. I think it's also, Oklahoma's a safe Republican seat, sure, but a lot of focus has been on the likelihood of the House flipping. There's a big risk to the Senate flipping, too. And I think a lot of people assume 53-47, the map's favorable to Republicans. But when you start going through the states of the Democrats recruiting who they want in Ohio against the freshmen, who they wanted in Alaska, what's happened in North Carolina, Texas variable. It's like the last thing we need right now is more open seats. And I think, the situation the way it ended in Montana also is ruffled feathers, too. So this creates a lot more consternation in the Senate as well.
So I do want to stick with domestic policy, but I am going to mention a foreign policy adjacent headline that's crossing the Bloomberg terminal right now, causing Boeing shares to jump more than 3%. Reportedly, Boeing is closing in on one of the largest sales in its history, a 500 aircraft order for 737 MAX jets to be unveiled when President Trump travels to Beijing. This is going to be a deal with China, as we know that trade deal right now is currently up in the air, as we just saw the Supreme Court strike down some of President Trump's broad-based tariffs. So that's going to be a headline that we're tracking.
3%. That's a big deal. They were hoping, the Biden administration was hoping for a deal like this coming out of COVID. It never happened.
Right, and it's raising questions, too, about leverage for President Trump going into this meeting after it was largely seen that he had been offset from the Supreme Court's ruling. So something that I'm sure we'll talk more about later this hour. But Mark, I do want to bring it back to this conversation. We can keep with the midterms, and maybe this kind of threads into it. But I'm wondering if Senator Mullen's selection is more about style versus substance. Are we going to see
You didn't think there's a lot of substance in the previous secretary?
No. More along the lines of a question. Are we actually going to see policy change here when we know Democrats are demanding some changes when it comes to DHS, and maybe there just needed to be a different type of messenger amid what had been bipartisan pushback to the last DHS secretary?
Well, look, senators like their own, and so I don't think there's any doubt the Senate will confirm Mark Wayne Mullen. So that's a plus as far as who the replacement pick is. But again, I think that the policy is not going to change. The policy is still being driven by the White House and by Stephen Miller on Homeland Security issues. And so, yes, you might have a different face for them, but you're not really going to have a change in the policies. But I really think this is, at this time when we're at war with Iran, it's a real opportunity for Republicans to be pushing the fact that Democrats are refusing to fund Homeland Security when there's sleeper cells in this country. And instead, there's so much chaos that you're actually not allowed to get on offense and prosecute the case against Democrats for not funding it. Instead, you're sitting here having news interviews every day about the chaos with the outgoing secretary and what are the chances for the new secretary. And so Republicans are really missing an opportunity here politically to be scoring points about Democrats keeping DHS shut down.
Speak to us about the significance of this change. You saw a lot of cabinet secretaries come and go in the first term. The president has been very careful to not give anyone the opportunity to use the word fired. And I think a number of folks reached for that line of first to be fired. Well, then there was Michael Waltz. Well, he didn't get fired either. Do we just reassign people now? You send them to another parish in this second term?
I think that there's probably been too much sensitivity to that, and yes, I think I'm not offering a vote of confidence when you're having constant turnover. But frankly, I think Americans sent Donald Trump in part because of the role he played on Apprentice. They wanted somebody to go to Washington D.C. and fire them all, and basically take a wrecking ball to Washington D.C. And so, how much that really hurt him, I don't know. And I've questioned a lot of his picks in the second administration, and I think probably would have benefited from replacing some of them sooner.
Wow.
We did promise that we would ask you about foreign policy, and you already brought it up in some ways, too. There's reporting that congressional Republicans are bracing for this White House to ask them for a supplemental funding request for the Pentagon to help bolster our own defenses as the Iran campaign continues. I'm wondering if you have any sense of how much money we're potentially talking about here and what the appetite right now is on Capitol Hill, the pressure to make sure that we are adequately funding as the military operation continues.
I would imagine you see a pretty large ask, and I think the reality is that in the time of war, that those are generally approved by Congress, and it's perceived if you're voting against our troops if you're opposed to it. And the reality is that, I think that truly this is a transformational opportunity for President Trump. I applaud his decisions. I think after 47 years of all the attacks, whether it's our embassy or whether the attacks in Beirut or funding Hamas and Hezbollah, the fact that Iran for 47 years has been prosecuting a war against the West and demanding death to America and death to Israel, it's about time that we actually had this action. So I applaud him for it. But Tyler, I think the concern that I would have if I'm in Congress elected Republican is that I think the president lowering energy prices for the first 15 months masked a lot of his trade policy implications. Now that you have energy prices spiking, I think you can see the real downside of these tariff policies, and you see inflation coming back as you're heading into the midterms. And so I think I applaud the foreign policy move, but I think there are really significant implications you head in the midterms if you continue to see inflation like this.
You would have been walking over this supplemental request, right, in the old days as the head of Leg Affairs in the White House. Democrats are going to say, whoa, I thought we had the first $1 trillion budget in history for the Pentagon, and it just went up by 50%. Why do we need more?
Well, the reality is that our deficits are so far out of control that actually we're now at 3% of GDP is going toward defense spending, which is the lowest it's been since World War II, Joe. So we've actually been underfunding. So
this is about catching up.
I think it is. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of people inside this administration who argued for more cuts initially to the Pentagon, which I think was wrong. But I think we have been underfunding it. So, but I think at times, I think typically when you're going to see something like this is you'll see other stuff put in the bill because again, there's a notion that Congress is not going to vote against something that's perceived as voting against our troops when they're at war. And so you can attach a lot of things to a bill like that. Yes.
The memories.
Whether that's coming from the White House or it's coming from Congress.
Understood.
They'll either see
if you want some Democrats on board.
Yes, they'll see this thing going through.
On the tree.
Let me jump on board.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, Marc Short, former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence and former White House Director of Leg Affairs. I'll echo Joe. It's always nice to see you in person. We want to